Hey church, welcome back to this week's devotional. We are talking about radical culture this week, and I want to share with you one of my favorite stories in the Bible from John chapter 8, starting in verse 2. It was early in the morning. Jesus came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery. They placed her in the midst, and they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now, in the law, Moses commands that we must stone such a woman. What do you say?" They said this to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her." And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. When they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the old ones, until Jesus was left alone with the woman. Jesus stood up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, Lord," she said. "Neither do I condemn you. Go and live a life free from sin." This week we are looking at what it means to live as a Christian, what it means to live in the world and the church and the cultures in between them. Often we talk about the world's culture and the church's culture, and we try and keep them separate. We don't want to compromise the biblical worldview we have and how the Bible would have us live. But on the other hand, we still want to live within the world God created for us. Jesus had a radical approach. And many in his day didn't appreciate it. He ate with tax collectors. You can check that out in Mark chapter 2, verse 13. This story we just read where he defended this adulterous woman and showed mercy and compassion. Things like calling the unclean daughter. He really just sort of was always jabbing away at the religious culture. You see, Jesus didn't need to point out their sins. He didn't need to point out the various sins or even really ask them to change. They knew they were sinning. They knew they had to change. But this really annoyed the Pharisees because they just wanted, Jesus to come down like they would, with the full force of the law, so to speak. But Jesus didn't fall into that trap because he was not there to condemn sinners. John 3:17, I did not come into the world to condemn the world. You see, Jesus didn't bow to the religious culture of his time. Isn't that amazing? He didn't bow to the culture of his time. But Jesus, on the other hand, wasn't compromising either. He upheld the law of God with a sense of compassion and mercy. He was not drawn into the pleasures of the world that so often draw us in. But he was able to walk with the people of the world without compromise. Jesus did not succumb to the surrounding culture of his time. In fact, Jesus walked in a radical new kingdom culture. A culture that made room for compassion and mercy. A culture that pushed against the religious power and control. A culture that fueled warm relationships without compromise. As we think through this idea of culture this week, I pray that you have a really blessed week. Looking forward to seeing you on Sabbath. God bless. Bye.